uh, Moscow State University, the School of World Politics, which hosts this event, by the way, holds a day of open doors. So you are all welcome to join, to ask questions about the academic details of our school, of our university, and probably make a decision to join us. I will send the information about this to the chat. Let me stop sharing and
honorable participants, can you please turn off the sound because you may interrupt our speaker? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Just hold on 1 second. There we go. This is the announcement about the open doors of School of World Politics. Here's the link and for registration. So you're welcome to join us and to have a look at what we do at our university, apart from our space project, apart from our space adventures. So my name is Pavel Sharikov. I'm an associate professor at the School of World Politics. For a very long time, I've worked at the Institute for USA and Canada Studies. That's the one of the Russian academic institutions which is responsible for studying the American political system and American foreign policy. Just recently, I moved to a different institution, which is the Institute of Europe of Russian Academy of Sciences. I am also part of the GIMO team for transatlantic security, and I have some other affiliations which are not important right now. I will talk today about American space policy. So my job was to discuss what is American government does about space, how space became a very important aspect of American political system, how space became a very important part of American policy, domestic, international, and it's fantastic that space has been a very important part of American political system throughout the 20th century. You know that the key agency, American government agency responsible for space research is called NACA, National Air and Space Agency. But before NASA was established in 1958, which I'm going to talk a little bit later, there was another organization which is called the NACA, National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics. And it was created by President Woodrow Wilson in 1915, which is a very long time ago. That was a United States federal agency founded in March 3rd, 1915, to undertake, promote, and institutionalize aeronautical research. It's interesting that it was mostly devoted to air force, to exploring how people can fly. You know that the first experiment, the Wright brothers, their first flight happened in December 1903, but only with the use of aircraft in World War I did aviation became a matter of national importance. The technology and the passions and fears it provoked brought about the NACA, a civilian government agency devoted entirely to the military and commercial development of a single technology. It is also notable that one of the Wright brothers joined the NACA, the committee, as a distinguished member, and he was part of the committee, and he was part of the of that effort. So President Woodrow Wilson was basically the pioneer in opening the government policy, the state policy of air research and air exploration, and later space exploration. The purpose of the committee was to supervise and direct the scientific study of the problems of flight with a view to their practical solution, and to determine the problems which should be experimentally attacked, and to discuss their solution and their application to practical questions. You know that aviation was used in World War I, but World War I was not about the aviation. It was mostly about tanks. World War II was about the Air Force, and most of the World War II battles were about Air Force and aviation. So after the end of the World War II, another war started, which is called the Cold War, which is not a real war, as you know, but still it was a military political competition. I would invite you to read as much as you can about the sources, the origins of the Cold War, because there are so many questions unanswered. There are so many things that historians are yet to find answers to. What we know, what we can say clearly, is that it was a military political competition. It included an arms race, a nuclear arms race, outrageous propaganda, probably even more than today, the military forces, the military competition, ballet, and obviously space. The space race was a very, very important part of the Cold War, and the United States and the Soviet Union, they both had some tremendous, some fantastic achievements in space research and space race. So, as you know, the Soviet Union was the first country to launch an artificial satellite in space. It was called Sputnik, the satellite, not the vaccine. So, in response to Soviet Sputnik in space, President Dwight Eisenhower launched an agency which was called Advanced Research Projects Agency, ARPA. Later, they added the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, which is still acts as it is today, and it is called DARPA. The agency was created on February 7th, 1958 by President Dwight Eisenhower in response to Soviet launching of Sputnik in 1957. I'm sorry, I said 58, it was 1957. The idea of DARPA was to create a special track for collaboration with academia, industry, government partners. And DARPA formulates and executes research and development projects to expand the frontiers of technology and science, often beyond immediate US military requirements. So if you're interested, I would invite you to go to the DARPA website and to look into the most crazy projects that they have. A lot of them are related to space. There is one technology which was for a long time developed as in DARPA, and it was not a priority. Today, this technology is known as the internet. In the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, it was one of the minor research projects delivered by DARPA scientists. So Eisenhower asked Congress to create an agency for civilian control of non-military space activities. At the suggestion of Eisenhower's science advisor, James Killian, the drafted bill called for creation of the new agency out of the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, the NACA, which was created by Woodrow Wilson in 1915. The result was the National Aeronautics and Space Act, passed in July 1958, which created the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, commonly known as NASA. That's the organization which still exists and which still responsible for government research of space and space projects. This is very interesting. As you know, Eisenhower was a military man. He was representatives of some fantastic American military heroes who, having finished their military career, became politicians and made a fantastic political career, along with President George Washington, Ulysses Grant, John McCain, if we're talking about contemporary politicians, and many others. And you would expect from a former military person to enhance military power and to treat military power as the key element of national security. Yet Eisenhower acted in a totally different way. Eisenhower made a very, very unfortunate, how should I call it, saying in his farewell address about military-industrial complex. I'm going to quote it. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought by the military-industrial complex. I believe that was the first time a person ever used this term, military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists, and it will persist. That was his warning about not letting the commercial companies be part of the military planning, because when you get addressed to commercial companies for your military needs, they can artificially create military threats so that they would have more profit. And that's what Eisenhower was afraid of, and that's what he didn't want to do. And that is why NASA was not a military organization, but it was a research organization. It was primarily responsible for conducting space research, for doing some space projects, some of which were related to the military. Some of them executed some military needs, but mostly that was a civilian organization which was responsible for civilian research. So ARPA as well as NASA were established as research institutions as a reaction to Soviet endeavors such as Sputnik and Gagarin. Gagarin was the first man in space, and that was a huge deal, which gave Soviet Union a huge leverage in space race. As retaliation to Gagarin's first space travel, the United States launched a mission to the moon. It was called Apollo. You know that Apollo mission. There was a lot of missions, and one of them ended up in a couple of American astronauts actually making a small step for human, a huge step for humanity. NASA had a lot of missions, including some of the missions which were basically failures. But I would like to share with you some of their pages on NASA websites, which are fantastic, because NASA website is a source of very interesting images and information about space research. So this is the famous Hubble telescope. I can send this link into the chat if you like, but you can easily find it yourself. Where's the chat? Oh, I'll do it later if you don't mind. Anyway, these are the famous pictures that you probably have seen anywhere on the internet. But all these pictures were originally made by a telescope which NASA launched from Earth to space to make those pictures, and this contributed greatly to understanding what is the universe, what's the universe is all about, how it works, and how it was created and where it's going. Just recently, there was a news about James Webb Space Telescope, JWST. That's another telescope which apparently is going to replace Hubble. You see that NASA makes a lot of social interaction and social media publications about its activities. This is the telescope, and I'm sure that soon we will receive some images from that telescope, which will be as fantastic as the ones that Hubble sent us. Apollo missions, the mission to the moon. Here is the some of the information, the famous pictures with American flag on the moon and American astronauts just floating around the moon, and yeah, this is fantastic. The Mars rovers, yeah, the Mars rovers is yeah, you do realize that it is impossible to send a human to Mars because it's a very, very long journey, and a human being is not capable of living through that journey. But it is possible to send robots to Mars and to send pictures made by robots from the surface of Mars and probably some other planets, but still, we'll look into that. Anyway, that was the 1958 was the year of creation of NASA, and the 60s and the 70s, that was the space golden age, as some experts and some historians refer to that period. It was, it was also filled with some romantic ideas about space, especially also warmed up by some incidents which happened. Most famous of them is 1947 Roswell, New Mexico incident. I know that you're going to talk about the science fiction in a couple of days, but let me give a little preview. If you Google 1947 Roswell, New Mexico incident, you will find out that there were some witnesses who presumably saw an alien, a known flying object, a UFO. And throughout many decades, some new pieces of information related to that particular incident appeared. One of the most famous of which is the video of an alien autopsy, how some unknown people wearing masks were working with a body of an alien. And nobody still doesn't know where this video came from. Nobody knows, is it true? Is it real? How is it possible? Why there were no other evidences of alien life forms on Earth, etc., etc. Clearly, there are a lot of conspiracies. Clearly, most of them, well, all of them are true, obviously. I'm kidding. Clearly, most of them are untrue, but this created a huge sphere, a huge field for science fiction writers, movies, cartoons, books, I don't know, everything. One of the most famous of them is Star Trek. I think it's one of the first ones. And every episode of Star Trek original series started with a phrase that space is the final frontier. There are voyages of the Starship Enterprise, its 5-year mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before. And it has tremendous influence on space research and on culture and on American politics. So what is most striking for me about the Star Trek, I'm a Star Trek fan, by the way, what is most striking for me about the Star Trek is that it was, from the very beginning, it was a research mission. So it was not about fighting, it was not about invading, it was not about defending the Earth from alien offenders or whatever. It was about research. It was about finding new information, about creating new knowledge. And all the members of the Enterprise are scientists. That's one thing. The other thing, which is still fantastic, is that during the most harsh times of the Cold War, when Soviet Union and the United States were building up nuclear arsenals against each other on Cuba, the Cuban Missile Crisis, Europe, etc., etc., the United States movie industry created a crew which was super popular. It was a very popular and still is, which consisted of different people, and there were a Russian person, well, a Soviet person among them. The Pavel Sharikov character is he's from the original series, and it is also interesting that in the reboot of that series in 2010s, there was a Korean guy instead of a Japanese guy. There was an actor from New Zealand instead of American doctor, but the Russian remained, and the Russian character was still there, who was a very important part of their team. There were a lot of other pop culture examples of, space exploration and space romanticism. I would have to say Star Wars, which is also a fantastic franchise. The Extraterrestrial, the E.T., one of the Spielberg's first most successful movies. Just most recently, there's a very funny series called Resident Alien, which I'm watching. I would recommend it to you. Another thing is that example of how the space exploration influenced space, American politics, is how a Democrat, you know that American political system, it has competition between two major parties, and Democrats and Republicans are opposing each other literally on every issue of politics. And I've already mentioned John McCain, who was one of the most respected Republican leaders in the Senate. He was a military hero. He was presidential candidate against Barack Obama in 2008. He was the author of many very important American pieces of legislation. He's been an American senator since, I don't know, the 80s, and before him, this particular seat in the Senate was taken by Barry Goldwater, another very famous Republican, theorists, still one of the people who is the author of Republican Manifest, if you like. And in 2020, a very weird year for American politics, the seat of John McCain, who passed away before the end of his Senate term, it was contested by two people, one of which was a standard Republican, and another one was a Democrat who had absolutely no political experience, who won the elections and who was an astronaut. And this person is Mark Kelly. He's one of the Kelly twins, very famous for space explorations. They participated in a very interesting experiment when the two identical twins, one of which was sent to outer space and spent some record time, like more than a year, and another one was remained in Earth. And the idea of experiment was to check how they were, what was different in their development. But he spent a lot of time in space. He was part of the Russian-American enterprise in space, and he won the elections just because he was a famous astronaut, just because he was related to space research. So this is fantastic. So about politics, as you know, that NASA remained a research institution, but clearly space was becoming more and more interesting for the military. It is interesting that that there's a space treaty which prohibits the weapons of mass destruction in space, as Dmitry Stefanovich said brilliantly in his speech before me. But the Donald Trump administration made a very, very weird move. So Donald Trump created a space force, that is a military unit which is responsible for military efforts in space. There was here is the this is the text of Space Policy Directive, which is signed, you see, in February 2019, 1 year before his elections. So establishment of the United States Space Force. I can share it with you, the link, just a second. If you're interested, this might be useful for your research. So that was a space unit within the Strategic Command, and there was a space units in American military forces. But it was the first time when all the military space efforts were separated and made into a specific military unit. It was a complete command, and it's part of the one of the commands. if you Google United States Space Force, you may also find a very funny series on Netflix with Steve Carell, which is, by the way, also a continuation of that romantic space exploration things. It is also interesting that President Biden, when he came to power, he was asked by many people to eliminate the Space Force, but Biden didn't cancel the Space Force. Neither did he prioritize it, but still he didn't eliminate it, and the Space Force will remain there as one of the major parts of American space power. This is very sad because Eisenhower's legacy about not letting the commercial companies dictate the priorities of the military is not fulfilled. But still, it is also interesting that space exploration is becoming more and more attractive for commercial companies. We already covered that many space companies have, many companies have launched their own satellites for communications, for TV broadcast, for reconnaissance of Earth and making pictures of Earth objects, etc., etc. But to some extent, the commercial companies' potential in space exploration already exceeds the one of the governments, and the government are left with some military tasks. This is why these things are happening these changes are happening in American military force. There are some other countries which are also installing the space units in their military forces. But just in the recent years, we see more and more reports about the achievements that commercial companies got in their space explorations. You've seen the two reports about two very famous, very weird billionaires traveling to space at the end of last year. So that would be Richard Branson, who's the head of the Virgin Atlantic Air Company, and Jeff Bezos, which is the head of Amazon. And that's a weird choice for him to travel to space, but still, this is very interesting. You know, they literally opened the door for space travel, space tourism, and things like this. The story about commercial space would be wrong without mentioning the SpaceX and Elon Musk. He pioneered in creating a rocket which can be used many times. So basically, before Elon Musk, once you send a satellite to space, while the satellite was delivered to space, the rocket, the delivery vehicle was destroyed. But Elon Musk came up with an idea how to use it more than one time. So SpaceX is probably the best example that private enterprises are becoming even more advantageous compared to the government ones. So why the United States space capacities are so powerful, and why the United States are remaining one of the biggest space powers? I believe that this is part related to the very unique way of cooperation between the government and commercial and private entities and private sector. In the United States, this is called a public-private partnership. A public-private partnership is an arrangement between a public body or agency, federal, state, or local, and a private sector entity to deliver a collective good, a beneficial facility, product, capability, or service for use by the public. Both parties commit to shared risk and investment in an agreement where risks and rewards are shifted to the private entities. And it is very important that both parties are risking a lot in cooperating and in space efforts, in space projects. But when a public sector entity considers a public-private partnership arrangement, it should articulate the objectives in the space sector, which include mission support, that would be advanced science, space exploration, and national security or defense. The functional support, such as communications, Earth observation, space logistics, technology advancements such as prototyping and developing new technologies, space industrial base to promote a competitive and robust commercial space sector. The NASA has been, they came out with the idea of tipping points, where every year when they plan their budget, they publish, so this is the most recent one, they publish the tipping points selections, which give the private companies an understanding of which technologies are most demanded for the next year planning, or a couple of years planning ahead. And they reward certain companies with some very generous grants. You see some tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. You see SpaceX, the demonstration of cryogenic propellant. The cryogenic fluid management is a fantastic technology which is used for cooling the engines, as far as I understand. The Lunar Surface Innovation Initiative demonstration. Yeah, probably some others. You can find this on NASA website. The NASA website, by the way, is fantastic. It has so many different materials, so many open media and elements and texts about American space exploration. It's not about politics. This is not about some minor things. Yeah, and the last document that I would like to share with you, and probably I should share the link with you, is the document published by the White House just in December 2021. This is the United States Space Priorities Framework. This is very interesting that I just sent the link in the chat to these documents. It's very short. It's only like 5-6 pages of text, but it gives the understanding of the new administration perception of what is space policy is all about. What are the benefits for the government, for American government, for space exploration? What are the benefits from space activities? And you can see that it's innovation and opportunity. I'm sorry. It empowers the economy and way of life. It gives huge advantage to the companies and to actors who are involved in communications. It offers huge opportunities for data storage, for data communications, for information exchange, for information sharing, applications ranging from banking to education and telemedicine. It spurs innovation. It it empowers competition. It gives so many benefits to private entities, to the governments. There is a very special emphasis on clean energy technologies, which has been a very big part of democratic political priorities ever since, I think it goes back to Obama administration and probably even earlier. And Al Gore, obviously, he was a huge clean energy and defending the environment enthusiast. They help us, the space capabilities help us manage the resources, protect people, property, environment from extreme weather events, address the climate crisis. The American climate satellites, I believe, are the biggest number of satellites are American. Space inspires us. That's a huge part of American pop culture, as I already mentioned, as you will talk about it in the upcoming days. Yeah, and obviously space race is still on. It is different from the times of the Cold War. It's the source of American leadership and strength. The space landscape, the space powers landscape and the international relations is very different compared to the times of the Cold War. American space exploration never stopped. It has always been there. It has always been a priority during all administrations. You can see that every administration, ever since Eisenhower, had a very specific achievements in space exploration and space activities. And obviously, maintaining its leadership in space exploration and space science is one of American top space priorities. So this is a White House document. You won't find anything about military use of space technologies, but still, this is a very interesting thing to look at, and this is clearly a very important topic for research. So yeah, I think I have a couple of I wanted to share this link. This is the list of American space policy directives, which were published throughout the many years of space being a priority of American politics. But obviously, you will find many sources for American space policy on the internet. And let me stop right here and try to answer your questions. So let me stop sharing the screen, and we will figure out what is going on. So yeah, Indian Space Command. Yeah, I'm sorry. I am not expert on other countries' space capabilities. I'm not sure. I thank you for sending the name of the Space Command in India. I will look into it, and it's very interesting to look into what tasks are these commands, are these military units have been obliged to do. What are they doing? How are they competing against each other? What basically constitutes the space power? It's not only about the number of satellites. It's not only about the number of space launches. It's much more than that. And again, you know, science and space being one of the most unknown pieces of knowledge that human science have ever dealt with, is very risky, because when space exploration and space activities are, you have to do a lot of planning. You have to have a lot of financial resources to send something to space. And this is very risky, because once you have an idea, you may want to confirm it with your space research, but you may not succeed in it, and this would mean that you wasted a lot of money, taxpayers' money, for nothing. But still, space is a very interesting thing to look into. Are there any future support for African countries to have their own spaceships? I'm not sure. I'm not sure about this. We should look into the NATO. I'm sorry. We should look into the NACA. That was a Freud mistake when I wanted to say NASA and I said NATO. We should look into NASA budget and to their international cooperation. I believe that such things would be only in that document, but I don't remember being any relation with all countries, including African countries. I'm sorry if I disappointed you. BRICS is also working in space cooperation with other nations. Well, space cooperation is a different thing, because what I was talking about NASA, I'm talking primarily about science exploration. I'm talking about research activities and research efforts to boldly go where no man has gone before. BRICS is an organization that comprises developed countries I believe each of which has its own space program and its own space projects. It's very important to cooperate, and science is the part of human activities which is not related, which should not be in any way connected to politics. And it's very sad to look into the news when, you know, Russia and the United States having these controversies today, these political controversies today, but when these controversies expand into space explorations, Russia, the Soviet Union, and Russia and the United States have achieved fantastic results in their space explorations, in their space research in the past, and this is this field should be without any political narratives. So China helped Ethiopia send their satellite into space in 2020. Yeah, China is clearly a huge space power. What is interesting about American politics and space politics as well is that Americans share a lot of information. And I know that this is like in American political DNA. Americans share a lot of military information, a lot of intelligence information, etc. And China and Russia and other countries are not as willing to share their achievements as much as Americans. So this is a very interesting what you wrote about China helping Ethiopia send their satellite into space, but I'm not sure we can find a lot of information about this. In addition to Ethiopia, China also carried out cooperation with Sudan, Algeria, Nigeria, and other countries. Fantastic. India also made a world record with launching 104 satellites in a single launch. Most of them were from partner nations like US, Israel, European Union, Africa, Japan, etc. Yeah, there are very few countries which have the launch capacities. It's, you know, the countries which don't have capacities for launching satellites, they are forced to cooperate with other countries. So this cooperation, yeah, I'm sorry, with sharing intelligence, data, remote sensing. And this refers to what we talked with Dmitry during our previous meeting earlier this morning. Some of you asked a question about transatlantic cooperation, and this is also becoming part of the competition, because clearly European Union would most likely cooperate with the United States in launching its satellites, because when you launch the satellite, you have to know what's inside the satellite. You have to know what are the details, the technical details of the satellite. And I don't see how European Union would come to Russia and ask Russia to launch its satellites to space. That is interesting. Is it possible the United States proposed Artemis Accords will become an international law 2.0? I should look into that. Is it possible stating the question orally? Yes. Let's come to questions. I see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 arms raised. Arms raised. What an interesting question. I see the first one was Inna Khlopunova. Can you turn on your mic and ask your question? Thank you.
Yes. First of all, thank you for your presentation. I have a question about the U.S. space policy. What do you think? How have U.S. space policy priorities changed in terms of security threats in the 21st century? Thank you.
Security threats in the 21st century. Yeah, this was part of my question to Dmitry, by the way, when I asked him what should we be afraid of in regard to space weapons. I believe that, everything related to information, we live in an information age, and everything related to information would be very valuable and very much related to security issues in the 21st century. I'm not a big fan of the word information war, but clearly what we witness today is how nations, some other actors who have the power to act internationally, are using information resources for their own benefit. And space and satellites and communications and reconnaissance and many other things that you can make through satellites in regard to information. What do you do with information? You create information, you share information, you store information, you hack into or you change information. And this is a huge deal in national security. So I think that in this regard, communication satellites, reconnaissance satellites, intelligence satellites are are the new weapon. It's not a weapon. It's not that you use for offense. It's not something that you use for aggression, but it's something that you use for exploring your opponent or enemy. And this gives you a huge leverage. It gives you a huge advantage over your opponent if you do it properly. If you can use your space capacities properly. So I hope that answers your question. So I'm a little bit confused. You have we have people who are writing their questions in the chat, and we have people who are raising their hands. So let me give floor to Artyom Andreevich, who raised his hand.
Yes. First of all, I'd like to appreciate you for this interesting lecture, and there's my question. What can we expect in a sphere of space policy from a new administration of the President of the United States, Joe Biden, in the near future?
Okay, thank you for that question. Well, I would refer to this document that I shared about the space priorities. I would say that it's unlikely that President Biden is a hawkish president. You know that American politicians can be divided into hawks and doves. Hawks would be the people who are enhancing the military and who advocate for the enhancement of military power, and doves are those who are about diplomacy and peaceful resolution of conflicts. So Biden and his administration are more dove-ish. They're more for diplomacy. And I believe that they are exploring new ways how to make space resources and space capacities valuable for peaceful resolution. Again, I believe that the key part here is to gather as much information as possible. So in the priorities that he published, there are nothing about military offense. There is nothing about defense. There is nothing about armed forces. But there is this fashion that a lot of recent American presidents stick to, about making a separate priorities for political agencies such as the White House, the Department of State, Department of Homeland Security, and others. And there is a special set of priorities, which is also published, sometimes fully, sometimes partly, for the military. And there is a special, Donald Trump did that. He had a space policy published by the White House and space policy published by the Department of Defense, which put a set of priorities for the military. And that was even before he created the Space Force, and that was before he created this specific space units. So I would expect the space exploration and the science exploration to be prioritized during the Biden administration. I expect the military forces to be probably less involved in planning certain aggression, to be involved in developing some offensive space capabilities. I think that a huge part of his administration's priorities would be devoted to negotiating what Dmitry was talking about, how to define space weapon, how to probably impose some arms control measures on space offense, on space aggression. there have been reports, and Americans have been discussing it a lot about, there was a couple of months ago when Russia destroyed the satellite from Earth, and that basically Russia didn't violate any norms, and it was not about Russia violating the norms of international law, but it was about making an incident, making a precedent of destroying a satellite from Earth. And this gives Americans a lot of concerns that make them nervous about the capacities that Russia has. Not only Russia, by the way, China also made things like this in the past. So I think these are the general tracks of American space policy. So probably this is a good thing that Donald Trump is not in power anymore. So Oksana Bech, you're very active. You also asked a question to Dmitry.
Yes, thank you very much. I personally am a huge Star Trek fan, and it is interesting to see how how the U.S. space policy is influenced by the ideas that are reflected in Star Trek, such as freedom of exploration, the pioneering in space, and they sort of mutually also influence each other. But even as a scientist, the Enterprise crew, they still encounter the hostile life forms. So apart from the Romulan Empire, the Klingon Empire, which are maybe already known to them, they encounter the life forms that may be far from physical, far from human, and as a reflection of those ideas of pioneering and mathematics, and given the fact that U.S. policy and the pop culture sort of mutually influence each other, does U.S. as for now has some guidelines for encountering the alien civilization? For example, I have seen there was a YouTube video how to encounter the space civilization, sort of, and there was a recommendation given. So in order for humans to show the aliens that they are intelligent, they are cognizant, they have to demonstrate to the aliens that they understand mathematics, that they understand Pythagorean theorem. So maybe U.S. has some. U.S. as one of the major space powers has some recommendations of the kind that with which they plan to encounter the space civilization that is alien.
Thank you for the question. I forgot to mention that Donald Trump administration, one of the measures that I think it was an effort to raise his ratings shortly before the elections, he made a promise to publish some secret and classified information about UFOs. UFO is an unidentified flying object. It doesn't necessarily an alien. It doesn't necessarily an outer space life form. So everything might be taken for a United Flying Object. Probably some Soviet rocket, which the Soviets launched without informing the Americans. Probably some other testing or some other asteroids which are unidentified. But it's in human nature that people want to believe that. Do you remember the X-Files slogan, like "I want to believe"? Humans want to believe that there is an alien life forms, and probably there is a huge government secret that the government has already interacted with aliens this way or another. And yeah, when Donald Trump made this announcement that he's going to publish some secret classified information about UFOs, and everybody was so excited. And when he published it, there was basically a very, very low resolution video of some blob, traveling around the screen. And yes, it was unidentified, but there is no indication that it was an alien. There was no indication that that humans interacted with whatever that was. And yes, it is still a mystery, but probably this mystery would be cleared anytime soon, this way or another. So yeah, I don't think that the governments are hiding these kind of secrets. This is all about conspiracies. This is all about ufologists and people probably. Literally, there cannot be any arguments about humans interacting with aliens. However, this gives some secrecy, some government secrets. They warm up the perception of humans, and this is what the whole science fiction industry is all about. So and another part of your question, how the Star Trek influenced American politics, it influenced greatly, because I believe one of the shuttles was called Enterprise, just like the Enterprise.
Yes, and even some craters on the moon also called in the names of the characters.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, the science fiction, they made heroes. They made very sketchy characters who are very much respected, who are very much loved by the public. And when the government somehow associates itself with these heroes, this is how the politicians raise their ratings and keep their image favorable for the public. I think this is brilliant. I think this is a very good political, technological move.
Thank you very much.
Sure. So let me Yegor Zagudaev.
Yes, so thank you for your lecture. It was very informative. And so my question is concerned with Mars mission of Elon Musk. So I'm really interested in this topic, but I want your recommendation about literature and resources where I can research more about this sphere. And I have one principal question. So are these articles and books are scientific or just like in fantastic style? Because no plants in Mars are realized now. And so there are many questions about, for example, the system of terraforming. When you know this, it's like the plans to make Mars available for life of people without masks or suits. So this is my question.
Well, as for literature, I'm sending you not you, everyone, the link on the page on NASA, where they have a lot of a huge library of electronic books in many formats made by NASA historians. I believe those books are not science fiction. You can pretty much believe what is written out there. As for Mars exploration, as far as I understand, I'm not a physicist, I'm not an astrophysicist, but as far as I understand, Mars is so far from Earth that there is not a single engine which is capable to deliver a human from Earth to Mars shorter than average human life. So whoever would travel to Mars would have to travel, and it's going to be a one-way ticket. Even if the space flight is super fast and a person comes to Mars when he or she is very, very old, there is no way that the person could come back to Earth. And I don't remember who was who was giving an interview, but there was some probably government official or space exploration expert. But the person was fascinated that once, I believe, Elon Musk opened this casting for people who would be eligible for traveling to Mars. And he said there are hundreds of people who are ready to get this one-way ticket without returning to Earth, knowing that they would never see their relatives, their friends, that they would never be able to come back. There are hundreds of people who are ready to sacrifice all that just for going to Mars, and this is really fantastic. This really gives you the perception of human nature and of what humans are capable of. Yes, Mars exploration is obviously a very interesting topic, and yeah, there are Mars rovers, there are NASA missions. There's Elon Musk, who is on a mission to. I think he launched a satellite which is supposed to go to Mars, right? Yeah, this is definitely a very interesting topic to follow, and again, this is, you know, even though there is one robot sent from, or probably 2 or 3 robots sent from Earth to Mars, it doesn't mean that Earth and humanity has the capacity of building a colony on Mars or doing something on Mars remotely. It's going to be years before such technologies would be available. So yeah, if I answered your question in any way. Ulukbek Turabayev.
First of all, I want to express my deepest gratitude for giving us opportunity to visit such a comprehensive and detailed presentation. So my question is related to terrorism, and I wanted to ask I wanted to say that international terrorism remains a significant threat to the entire world community. And as everybody knows, the United States of America today are the main fighters against international terrorism. And today, the threat of terrorism can also spread to the space, to outer space. So there is a danger that some terrorist organization will launch space debris or space junk into orbit, it will be not registered. So consequently, it will damage satellites and even make it impossible to go into space. So are there any grounds for us to be seriously anxious? And in your opinion, should the United Nations General Assembly discuss this? Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think that terrorist threat to space objects is more dangerous than terrorist threat to Earth objects and humans. And terrorists, I believe they are much more capable of inflicting damage on Earth rather than space. I believe that one of the key purposes of terrorist activities is to keep, people in terror. So whatever they do is to scare people, and scaring people on Earth is much easier than scaring people in outer space by doing something. That's one thing. And another thing, still there are very few options for launching a satellite or anything from Earth to space. And all of those options are very, very secure. They're very, very well monitored and guarded. So I don't think that what you say is a serious threat, but obviously I don't think that the United Nations, probably the nations which host the space launch objects should care much more about that. But yeah, I think that another thing is that the nations should do their best to use space resources to fight terrorists and to do something about terrorism on Earth. Thank you. Fyodor Roslikov with his brilliant avatar.
Yes. I would like also to ask a question. In your opinion, can the alignment of space exploration with a number of basic American philosophical ideas can be considered as one of the reasons of the success of the United States space policy? Because, for example, in American think tanks, analogies are often drawn with the study of the frontiers of the Wild West. Also, an analogy is often made between the space exploration and the era of the great geographical explorations. In line with these ideas, entrepreneurs like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos are considered as leading the space West Indian companies to ensure American expansion in space and US supremacy across the universe. So is there any philosophical foundations in the United States space success?
It seems like your question was inspired by Don't Look Up movie with Leonardo DiCaprio.
I still haven't watched it.
It's a nice movie. It's also about space. It's funny. If I understand your question correctly, the philosophical foundations of space explorations. It is very interesting that you mentioned frontier, because frontier is a very, very important notion in American philosophy, in American mindset, if you like. So if you imagine the frontier, how the Americans explored the continent when they came to the East Coast, and then they basically moved west, and by moving west, most likely they faced some pure nature which was not inhabited by humans, and some wild nature where they had to deal with some very weird unknown things. And this frontier was something, a border between the civilization and something completely unknown. So it is also interesting that space is also compared to this frontier, because, well, we know pretty much everything about Earth. Probably, I don't know, 90% of things on Earth are obvious, for at least for scientists. But when we move from Earth, there are a lot of unknown things. And by unknown, I don't mean that there are some resources to explore. At least when Americans moved from east to west, they knew that there will be land, there will be forest, there will be water, there will be some resources. But when we move to space, we don't know what is it there. We don't know what are the resources. We don't know what are the opportunities. And this is really a very, very interesting philosophical question. What do we need in space? Is there something we lack on Earth? Is there something we something specific that we look into? Do we know about the opportunities? So I cannot think of any philosopher who would be thinking about this, but thank you for posing the question. And this is a very interesting angle to look at the problem. And I don't think that the think tanks are doing this kind of research, because think tanks are mostly about some practical, immediate issues which are needed for, resolving certain, immediate political tasks. But this is a very interesting angle, which probably is the foundation for space research. And I will look into that, and I will start looking from the NASA website. But yeah, I would agree that this is a philosophical question about, the reason of life or something like this.
Actually, yes, there are no specific researches from the think tanks, but these topics were mentioned. For example, I personally saw it during the discussions in Hudson Institute.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Really? Yeah, Hudson Institute is a good institute. Thank you. Vladislav Kozyrev.
Yes, thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'd like to express many thanks to you and your wonderful report. I am the student of master's program of the School of World Politics, and as the student of the School of World Politics, I am partially interested in questions, in issues of global regulation and possibly global um, some sort of government, and in that case I would like to talk about previous lectures because as we discussed it yesterday, our system of space relations should have a revision, and in that case, if we talk about the United States, it presents us as Russians. As for Russians, it presents us a special case because we don't have such kind of private um, uh, private sector taking part into such sectors as space, which is considered in Russia as a state only. And we can also remember the case of controlling the internet, which is controlled not only by states, but also by private sectors, private entities, and there is an organization called ICANN, which controls, as it is said, 7 keys to the internet, and they control which sites, websites should be presented to which aren't, and whether the internet should be shut on or shut off. So the question is, can it be implied, can such kind of a private plus state global regulation of space relations can be implied in space sector, in space field?
Thank you very much. I spent a lot of time researching the cybersecurity issues, and many times I've read that space regulation is very similar, and the problem of space security is quite similar to the issue of cybersecurity and internet security and internet governance, whatever.
Yeah.
You're absolutely correct that the governments have certain part in governing and running and managing the internet, but as well as the private companies, which are also very powerful, and they have probably even much more resources than the governments in offering certain services and things like this. And when it comes to space, I would say there is one significant difference, one ultimate difference. Internet and cyberspace, or whatever you call it, is completely man-made. It was created by humans, and different humans who were designing it, who were creating it, they are from the very beginning realized what are the opportunities out there, what are the purposes, the tasks, the functions, etc. When we talk about space, this comes to the previous question about the frontier. It is not human-made. It is absolutely natural, and it is to a great extent unknown. We don't know what are the resources out there. There might be water on the moon. There might be water on Mars. This water might be very valuable for humans. It might not be there. It might be poisonous. It might be, I don't know, occupied by aliens or whatever. There are so many things about space that we don't know. So space is, first of all, about research. It's about investigation. It's about finding out what is it, what do we do with it, what can we benefit from, what should we be afraid of, how do we compete about space resources, etc., etc. Many questions which are yet to be answered. Unlike cyberspace, which was from the very beginning created by humans and, well, clear, if not for everyone, but for the key actors out there. So this is my answer. If I see that there's a lot of activity on the chat, so I don't want to miss them out. So if I may ask Diana to look into the chat and to somehow formulate the key questions while I give the floor to 1, 2, 3, 4 other people. Okay?
Yeah, I'm ready for that. So you can ask me and I will.
Yeah, thank you. Because I cannot talk and read at the same time.
Yeah, I wanted to help you anyway.
Thank you very much for that. So Nazarov Vladislav.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. I have one question regarding Elon Musk and private companies. So is there any document regarding private companies' activities in the outer space? I mean, companies like SpaceX, and are their activities regulated somehow? Who will be responsible for the damage they might cause? The native country, or there are some other kinds of organizations or regulations? So I just reiterated the question from the chat, but
okay.
This is specifically about law, but if you can answer, it would be great.
Well, this issue has been partly discussed during the previous session with Dmitry Stefanovich. I can add to that whatever international norms the countries can agree to, it is going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to verify. Because obviously Elon Musk have the capacity to launch satellites to outer space, probably not only the low orbit, but also the much further. And it is literally impossible to verify whatever he can commit to, whatever he can agree to on Earth. It is impossible to verify what is he actually doing in outer space. So, and Dmitry, I think, also mentioned that there should be some trust among partners in space, some confidence building measures, which would guarantee that will make different countries confident that whatever the other actors, and we're not talking only about countries, also about private entities, whatever they are doing is not damaging, is not threatening our objects in space. So yeah, but as for inflicting damage, I think there is like Earth law, which requires which may be implemented in case if something happens. I'm not sure I'm aware of any specific cases how this happened, but probably there are, and I should look into that. Thank you. Diana Alagirova.
Yeah, thank you very much for your previous answers for questions. Well, I pretty much forgot my question, but as far as I remember, my question was about the space policy of Senior Bush, and how did it affect the Bush Junior space policy, and is there any connection between the father and son in space politics, and what is your opinion?
The Bush family, and yeah, they both were very they both prioritized the space exploration. And if I'm not mistaken, I have a slide which I wanted to show you, but I didn't. Yes, there it is, which will probably answer your question. I'm sorry for the time. So this is sorry, just hold on. Yeah, this is the planning. So this is Bush Jr. from fiscal year 2004. I'm sorry, I thought that Bush Sr. would be here, but he's over here. And as you can see, when he stopped being president, there were some significant changes in the financials. So the exploration missions were significantly expanded, as you can see, compared to the budget of the fiscal year 2005. And American budget, it works. You know, the budget starts in October, not in January, and it starts for the next year. So whatever George Bush planned in the last year when he was president, it was still on the next year. So this is the space shuttle project, which was very popular during George W. Bush. But after 2008, it was eliminated, and there's no signs of space shuttle project even already in fiscal year 2012. And you can see some other priorities, which were about crew exploration vehicle. That's humans traveling to space. The International Space Station, which was a little bit expanded. And space, yeah, I already told you about the space shuttle. But exploration missions, which are the biggest budget authority. How do I put it? What they do for the major task that they're execute for space exploration. Yeah, thank you. We have, I think, the last person with a raised hand, Jean-Michel Attali. Where are you from, Jean-Michel?
Well, I'm from Moscow State University, actually, right in France. But well, Pavel, thank you for the presentation. May I ask one question? Just a few months ago, I read an article. There was a commentary presented by Elon Musk about the ability of SpaceX to hire foreigners, non-US citizens. There was a question of any, I don't know, of a student not from the United States of America. He asked why SpaceX don't hire foreigners. Unfortunately for the student, he wanted an internship, I don't know. And then Elon Musk said, as the head of the company, that they're not allowed, according to American law, to hire them. My question is, I did my research, and actually, as far as I'm concerned, any American aerospace, we call them aerospace company, including Blue Origin by Jeff Bezos, for example, they're not allowed to hire scientists, engineers from out of the United States, non-US citizens. Don't you consider it a serious barrier for them? Like a talented, gifted man from Russia or from France, they cannot be hired in that. It's the question.
Yeah, that's very wrong. That's very, very bad, and that's it's probably a significant setback for American space industry, because that is so weird. Because if we look into the information telecommunication industry, they are very eager to hire people from China, from India, from Russia, from other countries, and it is clear how these people how hiring these people benefited the whole industry and the whole country. So it is very weird. I can only assume that probably hiring them to be part of the crew is forbidden, but they cannot hire them, but they can pay them, not without bringing them in the country and putting them on the payroll. They can give them grants, they can offer some other forms of finance. Probably he meant that there are these kinds of forms of using their knowledge, their skills, and their experience. But this is a very, very bad law. I should also do the research that you did and figure it out. And you see, there's a person who wrote that there are so many Indians and Chinese in NASA. And I would agree, yeah, what you said.
Well, maybe in theoretical aspect, they can work there, but in Musk's case, there was a question of applied jobs. I don't know how to say. Like they cannot be engineers in these companies because of the questions of national security of the United States. I don't know. Like they cannot work with rockets. In NASA, maybe they are working with theoretical aspects of the second space speed.
It's like being American president. You know, a non-American citizen cannot never run for president. So if you're not an American citizen, you can never do the space research in the United States. Yeah, that's very unfortunate. Thank you for that. So Diana, if I may ask you to formulate one question. I think we have time for only one question.
Yes, so okay, I'm going to choose. We have partly answered some of the questions from the chat. So we are going to move to Alexander Shapovalov question. And that's about your position on the Elon Musk's comment to the Financial Times newspaper. He said that tens of billions of satellites can coexist in low orbit. So in my opinion, this question is connected to the topic of the increasing threat posed by the increasing quantity of space debris on the orbit. And if Musk says that this space debris and billions of satellites can coexist, is there really a problem? Why are these opinions opposite to each other? And what do you think about this?
I don't know whether Elon Musk made the specific calculations. Tens of billions of satellites seems like a huge number to me. I'm not a mathematician, but it's a huge number, and I haven't seen that article. I haven't seen that comment. I don't want to look like a person who just draws a sentence out of the context. Probably he was talking about some little forms, little like amount of satellites. I mean, size of a satellite which executes some specific task. If you ever been to a space museum, Smithsonian Museum in the United States or a Russian museum, have you seen the satellites? They're huge. If you look at the shuttle, and we have Buran, I guess, a similar project in Russia. It's really huge, and you expect an object in space to be, I don't know, a size of a truck or a building. But Elon Musk talking about billions of satellites, that seems weird to me. I think there should be some calculations about proving this particular point.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we can ask Alexander to send us the link to the article for us to get acquainted with the information, because that's really interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. Tens of billions. That is interesting. All right, I think this is it. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for your attention. You are welcome again to join the School of World Politics on the Open Doors Day, February 20th. I've sent the information in the chat. Good luck with your space adventures, and see you tomorrow and Friday on our events. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Pavel Alexandrovich, and there is a question for you, like organizational question, if the person can contact you if he or she has another question left.
Sure, go ahead. I think my email is on the website.
Yeah, Diana Lagirova, I will send you the email like with our mail system.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Pavel.
Василий Александрович, переговорим еще сейчас?
Да, конечно. Да.
Мгм.
Что-то все отключились, 30 человек остались.
Может быть, я завершу конференцию, и мы заново перезайдем?
Да, давайте.
По этой же ссылке, да?
Да, по этой же ссылке.
По второй. Ну, давай.